Good afternoon, everybody. Father Jason here on Casual Thursday here at the office at Church of the Nativity. Today, we're going to be talking about the sixth chapter of Luke in our chapter by chapter journey through Advent to Christmas Eve. In the sixth chapter of Luke, we have basically four sections. The first two stories deal with Jesus and tension with the Pharisees and the powers that be. First, his disciples are going through a field on the Sabbath. They pluck some grain and they rub it together in their hands and then they eat it. Okay, so that doesn't seem like a big deal if we just read it that way. But technically, that was working on the Sabbath, which was a problem. The Pharisees were very strict followers of the codes of Moses, and their intent was that if they could get people to be follow the law of Moses in a very strict way, it would restore the kingdom. It was a hopeful vision. A lot of times Pharisees get a bad rap. We need to be real careful about that. Now, but there was definitely tension and a disagreement in the interpretation of what the law of Moses was for between the Pharisees and Jesus that becomes heightened. The second story is related to that first one. Jesus is teaching in a synagogue on the Sabbath, and there's a guy there with a withered hand. And again, the Pharisees are wanting to see if he heals the guy on the Sabbath, because that would be working on the Sabbath. And Jesus says, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath or not? Basically, that if someone is in pain, then the rules become second. And also that the Sabbath is there for people, not the people for the Sabbath. So what we're getting at the heart of their difference in interpretation here, because the Sabbath, the intent of the Sabbath was for a day of rest, and so the people can recover from their labors and be healthy. It was supposed to help people, and the Pharisees had taken things too far to the point that now it was being restrictive. It was inhibiting people as opposed to restoring them and helping them. It was destructive and rather than constructive, by the extreme that they were taking it to. And so Jesus is trying to reverse that and put things in its proper order. But it puts them at tension. And then we'll see that tension continue to grow all the way up into Jesus's crucifixion. After that story, we have the calling of the 12 apostles, and they go on retreat. They go up on a mountain to pray. As Jesus has been doing, he would, engage with the people, then pull back and go in private and pray, then engage with the people and pull back. We've seen that happen a couple of times in the story. This time he takes the 12 with him. When they come back down from the mountain into a low place, to a level place, it says, he delivers the Sermon on the Plain. You may have heard of the Sermon on the Mount, which is in the Gospel according to Matthew, and Jesus delivers a sermon from the top of a mountain. In Matthew, everything that's important happens on top of a mountain. This is basically the same sermon, basically the same teachings, the different ethical codes that he brings up are very similar to the Sermon on the Mount, except here it happens on a plain. And that's where it's something, and that's the rest of the chapter. And something stuck out for me in the middle of that sermon. This is 6, verse 31. Do to others as you would have them do to you. We might have heard this. We might have heard this expressed as the golden rule. You may have even seen that poster that shows how this same teaching shows up in a lot of the world's major religions. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Now, it's interesting because that ends... at least in the NRSV, they have that end of paragraph of several verses, of 4 verses. So if we go back to the first verse in that paragraph and put it all together, it makes this a little bit more challenging than just being nice to people. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies. I'm starting at verse 27. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, Do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Now, that's intense. That is intense. Um, and it's really hard to do. It's extremely hard to pray for people and to love people who hate you. Um, and now, as we're in a very polarized, separate, a lot of separation in our society, a lot of angst and anger between the sides, and it makes this hits home for me this year. It hits. It's a slap in the face. It's a swift kick of Christian love, if you will. That this is something that I've got to work on. I've got to work on being able to see Christ in others, especially if I don't like them, to put it bluntly, or if I don't like their point of view, or if I don't like their behavior. And this verse that we hear, "Do to others as you would have them do to you," is not about just treating people that we go to church with, or people in our family, or people that we like, treating them well. It's about treating people who are wrong well, people who we hate, maybe, or who we don't like, or who are quite wrong, but still treating them as we want to be treated. And that's taking God's justice to the extreme and basing justice on grace and mercy, as opposed to our sense of what is necessarily fair. He goes on, "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same." He's raising the bar on what we are supposed to do. And at the end of that section, he says, "Be merciful just as your Father is merciful," just as God is merciful. Jesus is making an argument that God's justice is based on mercy, not on fairness. And that's a very challenging thing for us to accept and to practice. In fact, we fail. I fail at it. I fail at it every week. And that's why in the Episcopal tradition and any of the liturgical traditions out there, we say a corporate confession every week. We all stand up or kneel and say, "God, forgive us, for we don't love our neighbors as ourselves. We don't love you with our whole heart either. Please forgive us and help us to do better." And we say this over and over and over again because we fail over and over and over again. And that's just true. And so that's a part of the practice of our faith, so that we can attempt to go out in the world and love as Christ does, and base our life on mercy as opposed to necessarily fairness. That's a challenge. We're going to keep moving ahead, and it's going to continue to be more and more challenging. Jesus is not the person you follow if you want to be comfortable. Jesus is the person you follow if you want to be challenged. And if you are seeking transformation is never easy, and neither are Christ's teachings. We're going to get into more and more of that as we move forward. And that's why he ends up getting crucified. He challenged people who got tired of being challenged. So we'll see that as we move on. We'll get into chapter 7 tomorrow. Saturday, we should be on chapter 8, and I'll do my best to get a video out on Saturday. But I have family duties on Saturday and stuff, and that time as well. But I'll do my best to get a video out on Saturday as well. And then I hope you'll join us on Sunday at the Church in the Nativity. In our adult Sunday school class, we're looking at Luke. We're looking at Luke, how Luke is represented in art and music, and using a piece of music that I wrote several years ago to try to take us inside the scriptures in a little different way. I hope you'll come join us for that as well. All that being said, I'm Father Jason from the Church of the Nativity, and I want you to remember God loves you more than you can possibly imagine.